Red Death is friggin' back, baby, and I'm not talking about that puny exotic from Destiny 1 that they changed Red Death into. I mean the OG Destiny 1 launch Red Death. Hits like a truck, 2 burst potential in PvP. There's a lot going on with the returning Red Death exotic pulse rifle that we got to break down today. But suffice it to say, I think this weapon is going to be fairly popular this season. It may not crack like top 5 primaries and trials, but it's probably going to have a lot of staying power, so I think it won't be a stranger for sure. I've got a lot of good things to say, and I've got one major pain point to unpack after that, so let's get into it. First off, 2 things we got to get out of the way. Where do you get the Red Death, and how do you unlock the Catalyst? So Red Death is this season's featured exotic weapon on the Season Pass. If you paid for the Season Pass, then you can get it for free at rank 1. If you did not pay for this season, then you can unlock the exotic by leveling up your free Season Pass tier to eventually unlock it. And the catalyst on this thing looks pretty wild too. It reads, final blows charge the weapon, and when it's fully charged, your next final blow will create a healing burst around you and leave a remnant behind that continues to provide restoration for allies. So almost like a mini healing rift. Sounds pretty cool actually. I like the team synergy in there. But unfortunately, the Catalyst, it isn't waiting for you at Banshee anymore, right? It's time-gated instead. It's on Phase 2 of the Season Pass, so we won't be able to get our hands on it for several weeks. Honestly, bit of a bummer. I like that they added new tiers to the Battle Pass so that we have more stuff to chase throughout the season. But also, catalysts for these seasonal exotics have historically been available on day 1. So I'm not really a big fan of putting it behind a time gate, since that breaks the standard that they laid down. So we'll have to revisit the Red Death later to cover the Catalyst. But until then, the weapon we do have right now is pretty banging right out of the box. Alright, basic information first. The Red Death is a high-impact pulse rifle like things like the Messenger, Elsie's rifle. That means it's coming into a family that's already like more stacked than... No, I can't say that. My wife is in the next room. Anyway, the competition is stiff. It's solar this time around, which is good for some specific build synergy options, but that means it goes in the energy slot, competing directly with Elsie's rifle. But there's 3 primary things that the Red Death has going for it that I think separate it from its legendary competition. So first off, base range. Red Death gets 85 range right out of the gate. That's as good as an Elsie's rifle that's been fully kitted out for range, and that's like 4 going arrowhead break, which I think is kind of important on the gun. So that's almost 40 meters of range without damage drop-off. Love that. Second thing it's got going for it is raw dueling potential. So when I say raw dueling potential, what does that mean? To me, that really boils down to 2 critical things. First, stability, and second, flinch resistance. So Red Death has a misleading stability value of 49. You might look at that and be like, oh, that sucks. I bet this thing kicks like a mule. It does not. It has an almost perfectly vertical recoil pattern and has extremely minimal kick. I'll slow down some of the gameplay here. You can just see it in a raw duel, straight up, pull the trigger. This is the recoil. It's like nothing. It's super easy, buttery smooth. But it also has the perk inverse relationship on it. And that perk reads, when you deal damage with this weapon, it gains increased handling, it takes reduced flinch, you get better movement speed for a short time, and when you are at reduced health, this weapon then deals additional damage. So that's a long list of benefits just for getting shot. Flinch less, move faster, ready and aim more quickly, do more damage. I mean, it's a lot, and it's noticeable too. So all those things work together to make the Red Death an absolute dueling machine. The third thing that sets the Red Death apart is obviously its exotic perk, Redemption. It reads, final blows with this weapon cure you and increase reload speed. Reloading after a kill cures nearby allies as well. So also note that multi-kills grant you more stacks of cure. And the reload is lightning fast after a kill too. So the new Red Death has some team synergy too with its ability to heal allies on reload, and the Catalyst will take this even further. But most importantly, it helps keep you in the fight longer by giving you a nice chunk of health after every final blow. Now, it won't take you to full health if you're low, but it will definitely give you a noticeable immediate chunk of health. So it's not quite the same thing as Crimson. Crimson gives you that, that it queues up your restoration immediately, so you go to full health, but it's not an immediate jump, right? So it's a little bit different there. I think that's probably a good thing because obviously I think Crimson's more of like a brawler, up close sort of a dueler, and Red Death can be a little less risk heavy because it's got a lot of range and hits really hard. So I think that's a pretty fair trade-off there. One thing to note, by the way, if you're playing around with the Radiant buff, then you can potentially get a 2-burst kill by only getting 4 to the head and 2 to the body. And that's if you stack the Radiant buff on top of the intrinsic perk inverse relationship. But granted, that means you have to take a significant amount of damage in your duel. So maybe they rip your shields and you've got Radiant and then the damage buff from inverse relationship. So this could work really well with a build that takes advantage of the new seasonal artifact perk that grants you the Radiant buff when picking up an Orb of Power on top of all the other things in your build that can help you get Radiant as well. So just food for thought. So far, I've really sung the praises of this pulse rifle, but the last thing I want to cover is the more sort of opinion side of things, the personal feel side of the conversation. So how does Red Death feel in PvP when compared to some of the other heavy-hitting pulses out there right now? Does it honestly stack up? So here's where I land with that. Red Death is extremely stable. It hits hard. It has great dueling potential. But the one drawback to me personally is the optics. It's the same zoom as Elsie's rifle at 17, but it's not the zoom really that bothers me. It's the sight picture itself. So the 2 separate red dot sights in a row, that look, it goes back to Destiny 1. It's definitely nostalgic. It makes the Red Death feel like it certainly should, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But that being said, these optics are not clean to look through. They're kind of busy. And the second red dot posts that are further down on the barrel are really narrow, and they don't leave your sight picture as open as I would like it to be. So that means using Red Death well is going to take a little getting used to. And I did eventually get used to it, no doubt, but it's not as easy as just pick it up and have immediate success as some other pulses are like that have a much more open sight picture that don't obstruct as much of your view. It's a personal preference thing, and personally, I do not care for the sight picture on this gun. I love the gun. It certainly doesn't offset all of the great things that it's got going for it, but it is a singular pain point on an otherwise superb weapon. But considering the Red Death as a total package, I have to say that I feel like this weapon is a strong contender overall and will be a popular choice for gamers this season in PvP. Heck, it might even be a decent PvE choice once the Catalyst comes out, just for the healing factor, but we will see. I certainly recommend taking it for a spin, spending some time with it, getting to know it a bit, and I think you'll feel similarly to me. But let me know in the comments section what you've been thinking about Red Death so far, and what other exotics that have really risen to the top for you this season in the launch of the final shape. And definitely stay tuned for a heck of a lot more content coming consistently. Maybe hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the Crucible.
What can stop you if you fight together?